sending that today,
Oh, sure.
because I did not get it. I looked at it quick, I was bombarded with sales tax receipts.
How are you?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Marvelous.
Your last name is Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll make sure I get it right. Oh, thank you so much today.
Oh, we got some calls. Was that sarcastic or was that sincere?
Not sincere. And she called, Amy called opportunity, in opportune time.
Are those HDPLC?
And she's
Oh, it's a silver. Okay, that's what it is. So, I have one
Extra.
and there's.
Oh, we have.
There's more.
Well, one for Deanne,
Sure.
who's not here, and
Whoever else might want one.
What we don't really say. Well, and truly, I think that's the interpretation. Maybe we need to hit the head for the rock, because I think there are situations. Three or more vendors, bingo, that heightens it, and it, like, yeah, if you're starting,
Maybe you don't.
yeah, one or
If
more,
your,
yeah,
if your sales are less than X.
yeah,
Because I wrote that.
I know, like,
I don't know, I'm so sick of that. And she goes, well. Well, they were packaged in Christmas. But it doesn't. It's a niche, it's just taxable money.
Yeah. Well, and again, I saw, I think to fall back on it, with 3 or more members. You know, maybe that's it, maybe because, you know, it's like, when you know something, you know, when you read.
So I was talking to Rick
And you
about
don't catch the
bringing
mistakes
their
because you know what they're trying to say.
CWPIP off the shelf and reviewing and updating it. They probably won't happen until after we get budget all.
You know, time, you know, especially because there's so many facets that there's so.
February, about it, it's snowing.
We're missing that because they don't say, oh, no, under these
Yeah,
circumstances.
you've got enough stuff to do now.
Blah, blah, blah.
Good job.
Hello, John.
Is there one?
That's the only explanation that I have to read it along.
Which, yeah, we are. I look for God. It's in my desk, you need, accept it on my.
Hate stuff.
It is 27.
Yeah.
Always how it was. Yes.
But
that's
he
cool.
has.
Yes, how that's well.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I have no idea. It's not like it.
But he's, he has.
How do you fun for somebody, it's just gone. I don't
He
know.
doesn't
It's
live,
fair
I
way.
mean, he doesn't have.
I remember some time in high school.
Well, yeah.
I said.
On the leaf sheet, we talked, Tuesday, Wednesday last week, we talked. On the leaf sheet, we're all on, and I did so far.
And I read.
Yeah.
Sunday, everything was completely not changed. The Monday before it changed.
Oh, you probably want your packet? Thanks. Supposed to come get it.
Apologize if I'm being wrong.
If anybody else is there down
This
there.
is.
I will do that.
Thank you a second.
Hello.
Yes, I noticed. We want to get, I think the caption was might be expressed. because
Yeah.
we're Stephanie, oh my gosh, she's up in another. Yeah, Paul, you need to grab one of those,
Solar.
one of those, one of these, they're over on the filing cabinet.
Oh, I know,
next to
so
your-
so when I respond back, oh,
Okay.
you need something.
Unless that's-
That's what I said. They all know, but you know, it was something about it, just.
They started, yeah, they started losing these for in the green state, what's not green for a while.
A little bit.
I'm thinking maybe it's the aphids.
That's
There
great.
is some loves.
Yeah, there's been a lot of. We've had
You have to write the number for burning order, and then you go out and get the special. permit. Or sometimes they change the last edition. I don't know.
But I would say most of them, I've been just having the regular standing one. I think there was only a couple from last year that went out that special.
Yeah.
This was our,
Is that special?
you
Yeah.
know, never stopped, right? Never, just for a fee. Don't progress. Thanks for the information. Oh, no problem.
No,
Yeah, that gets confusing
if I
when
do, I think they do it right.
you get into history where how it's.
But thank you.
Now, I mean,
It's all the same.
It'll only
thing.
sound rich.
It's all the same. thing. Except for, because of how it's written. That's why it's. It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But once you explain the progression.
Well, and mine, I got all.
Yeah, you look at the audit for it, you see that.
All of them for months, so I mean, I don't know. But on November one,
And you're looking
Jeremy, have you met
at
Rick yet?
I've done.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ben, this is Jeremy Travis.
yeah,
I
we
remember
talked
that.
about that.
But I never did, it did, and now,
Now, why?
if you have some.
Yeah, this is. That'll be the one, yeah. It's like, yeah, open arms. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Live and in person.
And in person.
And chances are we won't lose you.
Some people are losing me.
That was tonight, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, we are.
Do you need a packet, Rich?
What's that?
Do you need a packet?
No, I got it.
Oh, Deanne is on here. I'm not sure why it's not showing her. I think she doesn't have her video on.
I should have.
So,
Can you hear me?
I hear you, yes.
I had it on before.
can you turn on your video?
Let me see if I can. It was when I, set everything up to test drive things.
Aha, well, here we go.
How's that?
Oh my God, oh my God. I should lose weight, I'm sorry.
And it's 6 o'clock. So, I'd like to call the meeting, regular meeting of the Town of Georgetown Board of Selectmen for September 27th, 2022 to order. It is 6 p.m. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, police judge. Rob Connell.
Here.
Deanne Powell.
Present.
John Jennings.
Here.
Paul Minton.
Here.
Mary Smith. And Rich Barrows.
Here.
Wonderful. Agenda approval. We've got a couple of changes to the agenda. We're adding the construction contract for professional survey services, and I was gonna add that at the end, which would have been action item number 6, even though it's numbered differently with the summary sheet that came with it. But I'm also deleting action item number 4, which is the review and discussion of the latest draft of the IGA for the fire authority. I apologize to all of you ahead of time. I grabbed the wrong revision. It was an older revision. There was a more recent revision. And so we'll pick it back up on our first October meeting instead of trying to discuss it and digest it tonight. So, okay. Anybody have any other additions or deletions, corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended for September 27, 2022. Sorry, wrong.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the payables. And these are from September 9th through September 22nd, 2022. Any comments or questions on the payables?
I have a couple questions just informationally. At 10/60/436, it's R&B truck repair. What truck was that? Is that's $3,000 pretty much, what was broken?
I'm not sure what was broken, however, that is the newest truck that they have.
Okay. And also 10/90/680. What conference did we send Betsy Blakesley to?
Was it DFC?
Yeah, Saving Places Conference on the road. She went to San Luis. Man, we got reimbursed for it.
Okay, I just wondered because it was just kind of vague, It's like truck repair and conference reimburse, and it's like, what,
It was actually training, and there is money always in our budget for training for our boards and commissions, so. Okay, Paul, you had a question?
No, you got answered, it was the truck. question.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the payrolls, September 9th through September 22nd, 2022 as presented?
I'll make that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the payrolls. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was on September 13th, 2022. Any comments, corrections, additions? I had just a couple, on page 2 of the minutes, under the liquor license authority item, the hours of the Silver Queen tap. I thought it would be clearer if we added the AM after the 10. Otherwise, it looks like they're only open for an hour. And
I'll tell you.
didn't think they.
A lot of damage, wow.
Yeah. On page 3, I had a couple of suggested additions. Under the public hearing for the supplemental budget, just to be clear that there was no public comment, I thought it should be stated in that paragraph between the opening of the public hearing and the closing, just a sentence that says there was no public comment. And then down further, under the ordinance number 3, I think one of the reasons is, bears are getting in the trash, but the other reason for adding this amendment to the code is to ensure proper trash disposal for all STR operators. Something to that effect. I'm not real fussy about the language, but and that's it. And then I also wanted for the executive session, if we could add the time that it was open and the time that was closed. And I didn't have that any longer because I gave that sheet to you.
Yep, we got that.
Okay.
All inserted.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Okay. We would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 13th, 2022 meeting as amended.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 13th meeting. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? On to new business. First item we have is Jeremy Jones is here with us tonight to give us an update on the fire mitigation at Silverdale. Jeremy is the Clear Creek Fire Authority Assistant Fire Chief.
Where's Lincoln's?
You can.
This is.
You're good.
Is that good? That's good.
So
I let the camera operator tell me that.
that's why I always ask this question. So, thanks for giving the meeting the time, number one. I am Jerry Jones, this is part of I manage all of the wildland mitigation projects that we currently do in the county. So in front of you, you got a brief overview of where the Silverdale project is, with some before and afters. I went before the historic planning board last week to put this request in there, also the only one request. It's for your guys' board, the rest is historic lands. But we are working up there right now currently on Tuesdays and Wednesdays only. Through the end of October, we're trying to finish up. And the reason we shifted that from the original plan is we've had 2 or 3 wind events over the summer, as you all know, the Georgetown. So the blowover, both the egg and live blowover within that area almost doubled the number of trees on the ground. From the early walkthrough when snow was on the ground in April and May to last week, we're still finding them. We're trying to get all those out of the area, especially once next to the trails are moved, but there's a bunch that are essentially hanging between 4 or 5 other trees between the trails. We're trying to get all of those cut out this year because we know that people travel everywhere within the historic area. The other change from that came out last week's meeting is we're going to start flagging. It'll be a small green flag, almost ground level. If you walk up there, we're finding a bunch of it. Not high value historical artifacts, but it's artifacts in the area, right? It's defining history as we're working on the trails, we're locating the stuff. So we start flagging it, take a picture of it, and then I'm working with Matt Taylor. So we will add a location on a basic topo map that I will export to Matt in the form that he can use to add that to an overlay map. The Forest Service archaeologists, anybody else that wants to be featured. Preservation. So as we find things between now and the end of the year for the snowflies, we're going to mark them, take a picture, and then GPS them, and then give us a map. He'll return and give that final product, also the final map back to Craig, which he'll have for plans also. And if you guys want a copy, that's sending Craig to distribute accordingly once it's completed. We're trying not to lose those items. We've decided as a group we don't want to move them. We don't leave them exactly where they've been, some for 100 years. But we want to identify what they are, have an idea what they look like, and then deal with it. So that's a change that came out of last week's meeting. We all agreed upon, and we're moving forward with that project. That was one of our concerns, what we do with that. The last big change, and on request, and there's 3 requests. The last request, I think, is one of these burn files. So we were originally going to sit within the project area, and then after long conversations with my counterparts in the Forest Service, and we've been evaluating, there's a lot of barren area within the Silverdale area. Trees, the canopy's opened up now, we're getting sunlight to the ground, but there's nothing there to grow. It's pretty much like that. So talking to Forest Service, we come up with a change of plan where we want to do, we call them basically little teepee burns. They're about 3 foot in diameter, size of a small campfire. We take all that debris, we line them up in rows, and then as soon as we get snow on the ground, we walk from one end to the other, and we burn them. That ash stays and covered with snow, and we have a reasonable chance that we can seed in the spring. We're looking for seed mix to see if CSU is available. We want to reseed those areas. We need to put a little bit of minerals and other minerals and carbon back in the ground before we ever seed it. So that's the shift in the project. We're going to try to reseed some of those areas where the teepees are currently at. If you walk it, rail bed, there's a teepee the size of this room. 2 of them the exact same. The witch's circle teepee is down. We want to burn the teepees in those areas and try to reseed those in the spring and make an attempt to restore some of those areas to let's say 30 years ago, whenever they were originally damaged by activity. So what I need to move forward is I'm asking for permission to burn that area in the winter. It's low intensity burn, it's not a lot of smoke. We'll do it with an air permit. The reason we do small piles is it's very low intensity. We don't sterilize it. It's manageable. Probably January or February, we'd like to do that depending on conditions. We want to get it done midwinter, so we have good snowpack on top of it, and we have at least a chance in the spring to seed And we'll try to seed fairly early, probably April, we'll still be snow on the ground in a lot of areas. And we'll hope some, the spending that seed takes off, it might take 2 or 3 years to seed. We'll at least want to try this year and see if, maybe we can make a difference within that area. I think it's important all of us to restore it and keep it as pristine as we can. That's kind of the next step down we can do. We will be hauling out wood from the project over the next month and a half to try to get the material out of there. All of that, all the wood we haul off these projects, there, sawmill, plus the generous donation from the Rockville projects and evergreens, that all we do is here. So I asked from this group, if you know families that can use it, we all know there's families out there with the cost. If they can use a cord of wood, 2 cords of wood to get the winter to help them, we want that wood to go. We're working with several community groups, we're working with a large church group at the Evergreen area, same thing, with the same request.
Could somebody pay for a cord of wood for somebody else?
Yeah, same idea, but if you have families give us the information so we can make sure the work gets selected. We want all the wood to be utilized. It's not a for-profit operation. And that's part of this, the utilization of the wood. We've had requests over previous years, I know we scheduled several. Well, is there any source of wood for the community? We've had to say no. Well, that was part of this, where we're trying to get to, is now we have a source of wood beyond our county, because we're taking essentially 100 cords of wood out of Evergreen from a state project, because we have the need within the community, so we're going to try to put them. So that's, as you talk to people, get the word out. If you know somebody, you be anonymous, and you can be, hey, could you deliver to my neighbors? We'll figure out a way to get the word in. We're working to the school, we're going to work there. We know there are families out there that we need to help, but won't ask for help, number one. Or maybe don't know, right? Don't have a viable solution, especially if you go to this. We're all talking about gas is going to be at 20%, propane's going up, and well, that affects everybody to different degrees. So we're looking for ways to offset those programs, and we have to go through it. The end goal is all the wood goes somewhere and gets used versus piled up or chipped into more massive piles of doing it. So that's kind of the shift. So my request to this group is permission to burn this winter to that part of the operation. And then answer any questions you have from, where is that? Would you be hearing from the community or walk it? Spend more time out there walking it now than I did as a kid. I'm not sure what's happening. We're walking these projects and talking. We spend a lot of time talking to the community to find that out. My crew spend probably 20 to 30% of their work time actually talking to visitors. What are you doing? Why are you doing? How does it make a difference? What's the history of this area? So we told them, you get less work done, but you get more interface as part of the project. So the feedback from the community's been good, but I'm always curious to know what you're hearing from your constituents, your neighbors. So it's the sort of land group that I talk to all the time. That's a very small bubble sometimes.
I personally have heard, the people that hike it are very impressed. They had a lot of apprehension when this was first suggested, and their fears were all calmed down. They seem nothing but good come out of this one. So thank you.
That was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always need the goal to try to hard. We are partnering with the trails crew to work on some of the bridges for the Western Trail. We want to utilize, won't probably be this year because we kind of ran out of time in the season. But as we know, with the Penstock being shut down and the rising water levels have changed bridges, we want to utilize some of the trees within that area to rebuild or modify existing bridges to compensate for the change. So I'm working with John Butcher, we'll figure out what that looks like. And we'll partner next year, probably in the spring, and we'll partner up again to accomplish some of that work. There's 2 bridges that need to be replaced. The zigzag bridge is the cage, there's another one's in pretty bad shape. But we know that now that river's rising, and we don't know what runoff's gonna do, that could change, be a game changer for all of us. We're trying to prepare to get that planning process done with that group to modify, add, or what we need to do to compensate for that change. With the bridges, and why not use the trees in the area to construct the base of all those bridges? Going to go Home Depot and buy a bunch of 6x6 posts for $400 worth of work, or we can rebuild the 12 bridges by utilizing the stuff we have available. So we're working through that right now, trying to figure out what that looks like and the whole part of it. Separate from the addition.
Yeah, are you cutting and stacking this wood
We are,
on site, so if we need to go get it?
yes,
Okay.
that's the thing, we are cutting, stacking on site, but anything that's cut and stacked, even if it's not stacked, if it's on site and cut, it is free for you to grab as much as you want.
I mean, cutting into the standard size.
Most of the stuff, the bigger hangups like that, honestly, are 4-foot sections.
Oh, that's we cut again.
Yeah, it's open, we wanted to go to community, that's the entire purpose of all of this. It honestly ends up in somebody's wood stove, in somebody's house, and that's the end result.
And I presume you're working with maybe social services as well?
We're gonna branch out there and see how that goes, and trying to figure out a good avenue to contact people, right, without putting on social media. We have free wood, and we get 100 people that probably could have bought 2 cords of wood yesterday, but they're lined up in front of the family that needs it. We're trying to avoid that, so we're trying to figure out the quality way to vet the homes it goes to make sure we do the best good throughout the community versus, well, I can afford to buy wood, I don't need 4 cords of free wood, that's not fair to the family next to me that can use it.
You know, Tammy Fry, down at the resource center. Tammy, you know, she's somebody who has to deal with that.
That's what we're now.
Yeah, the one with Tracy Troya,
Yeah.
Right.
and
Yeah,
she
you can
fields
go through
a lot of the questions that come to human services, yeah.
And we're anticipating about 100 cord, that's a rough conservative guess, on top of probably 10 to 15 will generate with market projects. That number could go way up as I go every next 10 blocks, which I just worked about 2 days into, hey, we have wood, what do you think? So I can go aggressive, whether we use it all this year or we use it this year and we carry on in the next year. It's not a storage issue for us at the authority, it's just a matter of, let's have a call to give that.
Could you get it down to like low and efficient, so when people go down there to pick up
Yeah, we
other
can,
supplies, they bring them.
all of that, right, that's all the stuff that we're looking at. It's growing faster than we thought it would, because we have a finite amount of wood from our projects, and as things have shifted in the community, it's, hey, you've got way more wood than you thought you had. Figure out a way to do it, so the scope has grown, literally in the last.
You're just getting what works out as our wheels start turning.
No, this is great, thank you. So the last thing I had, and it came up, it was actually Cindy Neely and I walking around. The project area we're talking about, we have a bunch of trees that are essentially Christmas tree size. That have to go, it's reality, the small trees have to go, it's part of the prescription. But Cindy and I were talking about, well, why don't we sell these for Christmas trees? Didn't think much of it after that. We got busy, we did a long summer, we talked. It came up again. And the comment from the historic landlord, well, that should be, we should put that to you guys. Because most of the land those trees are on is kind of Georgetown property. Even though it's managed by historic land, it's still good. So that's what from tonight is, are you interested? What we'd like to do is we would flag them with a number. All right, that's all we know to track this. And we let you know how many trees we have flagged. You could sell a ticket per tree, or you're not even not even a tree. But that gives a way to track it. So if I have a ticket and I show up and I come back out, and we talked about the bridge as a checkpoint, I come back and say, I cut tree 102. 100 tree was this man. We can track that. But it's a revenue stream, whether you use it for parks or the hugely expensive remodel we're doing in parking, all of it, right? I'm sure it'll offset some expense that betters the community. And we're not just cutting this, they're not good for firewood, we're gonna cut them and ship. Well, why should I cut them and ship them if they can be at least a Christmas tree? They're getting chipped anyways, right? The end result's exactly the same. You end up at the transfer station, they become chips. But if there's a way to kind of leverage that in the meantime, right? Well, yeah. Maybe goodwill, maybe it raises funds for replacing the sluice seats in the park next year, for example, right? That little bit of things, it means it comes back. So we're willing to help in any way. We'll tag the trees, number the trees, give you an Excel spreadsheet. And whatever else we can do to help, I think it's, we have to cut them anyways, and it's a lot of the community, and it might, the other thing we talked about is, it might get people in that area, the historic lands area, that never spent the time to walk up there. So maybe they're for the first time going up and looking, and this is pretty neat, we didn't know this was here.
There's no identifiers or anything like that, is there?
No, we would flag it, and like, you know, see Washington, green flag on a tree, that would be, in the program, that's the tree I want, and all you're giving is, I cut this tree number on the way up. But maybe it generates a little more use, and people historically wouldn't go up there, which is also good as you go up for funding and all the other stuff, grants. More, the higher the use, right, the more community buying you have, the more support you have with future projects. We know it's already well forward.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay,
That's the end of my spiel.
okay.
So you guys are-
Still on a blessing for the.
Yes, he
I
does.
just need to let you make sure you guys are learning. It's just shifting the plan, but it's
Yeah, so. So I'll make that simple motion that says,
Motion to approve the fire district conducting prescribed burns as described.
so second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve.
Could you restate the motion, please? I couldn't hear it.
Motion to authorize the fire district to conduct the prescribed burns as they have described it in this meeting.
Okay.
Now moved and seconded.
Yep, it has. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Yes, appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks for the support. Keep doing that.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Because I recall, I think it was a few years ago, I was looking at getting permits to cut down a Christmas tree. And oh, like, there was no place in Cleveland County to do that.
Nowhere.
I think the closest place was Summit County.
Summer County, that's,
Yeah,
that's been there every year.
This,
That's from the forester.
that's from the forest, this is our one.
So bear out the
Now, this is right in our backyard. Yeah. This is something I would really. find
There should be a sleigh ride too.
There's multiple years. Just to clarify.
Say again.
There's multiple years. This year, we're talking about the current project area and around the mill foundation. When you get up on the power line trail, which is also within the town of North County, Cricket County property, there are Christmas trees in a nice even row that entire distance from the Forest Service line all the way through. That's what got us started on this, was we were walking that. And we walked by a bunch that were about 6 feet tall, and that got the ball rolling, right? So this is a multi-year thing, with the first year probably being a little smaller, for none of us, I think, we're fully probably manage it, how to make it more effective. But there's an opportunity to do this for multiple years, right? Summit County is the nearest. If I want to cut a tree on USFS permanent property, it allows me to do that. We're going over fast, right? And we're trying to figure out how we go over the pass, all back to the tunnel about the car, and get back to the Georgetown. So it's a unique opportunity within your backyard. What I'd like to not see you lose is the opportunity to generate some funding out of that that benefits the county.
Very cool.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have ordinance number 3, series 2022, and this is a public hearing and second reading. an ordinance amending the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning required trash plan for short-term rentals. And why don't I go ahead and open the public hearing? It is 6:28 PM. And we'll start off with
If I could Rick, please, Sarah.
Rick. Okay.
So, I knew our last time we discussed this, and some questions came up, mainly concerning just the town administrator's discretion. And wanted to see if we could add more language to that, and so I think that's where we left it. And I know Lynette has something that she has thought about.
So, yes, my suggestion was in that amendment, portion, that it, after it reads, I'll just read it. All short-term rentals shall, as a requirement of license issuance and continuously thereafter, provide a trash management plan. Then insert that complies with all of the town's regulations and is, and then continue with the rest of it, acceptable to the town administrator. Does that, does that satisfy concerns, or does that clarify?
Sure.
Okay.
It's all encompassing and grabs them all in and be responsible for.
Okay. Do you wanna add anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Any public testimony?
Okay. Do we have anybody here for public comments?
No. No, we don't.
Jen is telling me we don't. So,
There's a motion in the back.
we'll
Sorry.
close public comments at 6:30. And any comments from the board? If not, Carrie says there is a suggested motion in your packet.
And for that, because the motion's been, or the ordinance has been edited a little bit, maybe the proper motion be to approve the ordinance 3 series 2022 as suggested for amendment, so that we don't have to do any more than that, and that will be sufficient to adopt the ordinance.
And well, shouldn't we also add as amended on second reading?
Sure, I thought that's what I was trying to suggest.
Or just
As suggested for amendment.
Okay, but the second reading is in your.
Oh, okay, that's fine too.
I move to approve ordinance number 3, series 2022, as suggested for amendment / on the second reading, amending 5.28.050 parentheses 3 to include 3, no trash or garbage should be left outside the unit. All short-term rentals shall, as a requirement of license issuance, and continuously thereafter provide a trash management plan acceptable to the town administrator.
That language got changed.
That complies with all the town acceptable to the town administrator.
I'll second
Oh, I
that.
have that.
Okay, I think we're in agreement. Okay,
Kind of wordy.
so there was a, Mary seconded it, yeah, I know. I'm making it stop. So, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 3, series 2022, as amended on second reading. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Next, we have ordinance number 4, and this is the series 2022 first reading. An ordinance amending section 17.26.010 of the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning temporary uses permitted.
This came up after our meeting last time, two weeks ago, and Selectmen Smith made her suggestions, and we put together that, as you see, temporary facilities are now temporary use permits in this particular category only last for a week. And the concern was that for certain nonprofit organizations, they might need 2 weeks. You have the power to make that distinction between nonprofits and anyone else. And so this amendment expands that period of time to 2 weeks for nonprofit organizations. That's what it does.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
This sounds like it's made for Christmas markets so that nonprofits can leave their tent up for the whole time or something. Is that what the intent is?
Just 2 weeks instead of 1.
Well, yeah, but that's when Christmas market, right?
Correct.
Well,
I think Mary can answer that because that came up when we talked about it a couple weeks ago.
So Deanne, this isn't the small individual tent opportunities canopy. This would be a large tent that would, think wedding size tent that would hold several different activities or vendors or whatever that come up. We have the potential of Strauss Park not being quite ready for prime time, but there's also the expansion of Christmas market to include the parking lot next door to the Hotel de Paris.
Is there any possibility that we'll end up with problems with 2 separate entities wanting the same space that, maybe their things overlap by a weekend or something?
No.
in the case of that, when, the first person that asks for it gets it, I mean, it
Okay.
makes, and you wouldn't grant it to 2 different people and let them fight it out in the field. Sorry, we've got this booked on this date, you can have it after they're done, that kind of thing. Somebody is always in charge of coordinating that.
And I was gonna say, I'll just add to that too. We've never had this situation, and so it's not like it's a frequent occurrence. But if that situation were to happen internally, we would have a review and staff, we would talk through this and make sure that that would not be a hindrance for either group. So it's just a rare occasion that we're not really concerned about it.
Okay.
There's no staff memo, so the easiest way to do the motion is after that.
Oh, he.
Is that the one that I suggested to change?
Oh, yep, there's no, okay.
Remember?
Take it away.
Yes.
Take it away.
So, my suggestion to revise the recommended motion that's in your packet is to, I move to approve ordinance number 4, series 2022, an ordinance amending section 17.26.010 of the Georgetown Municipal Code concerning temporary uses permitted on first reading.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 4, series 2022 on first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay. Skip past the fire authority IGA. Just been deleted, and we are on to commission appointments. What we've got tonight is reappointment of Joan Eaton, Mark Reynolds, and Cindy Neely to the Design Review Commission, and to renew the appointments for Dan Owens, Beth Luther, and Brady Scott to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Did we, I presume, but we don't have any additional explanation from them, that both of those commissions, it's been discussed and all 6 of those people were willing to continue, is that correct? Okay, wonderful. They're all doing a great job, I think, so, does anybody have any objection to having all of those 6 people in the same motion? Okay. Okay, there's a recommended motion in your packet.
I'll make a motion. I move to renew the memberships for the Design Review Commission for Joan Mark Reynolds and Cindy Neely, and to renew the memberships for the Parks and Recreation Commission for Dan Owens, Beth Luther, and Bradley Scott. Brady Scott.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? And then we have the additional item of construction contract for professional services. You want to take that one?
Yes, I will. So I know I sent you the action item list to read it. This is from CDOT giving us this grant, and it's, $842,000. And there is a portion that we have to also come up with. But in order to get this going, the procedure or the process goes, we submit an RFP for CDOT to approve. Once they approve that, then we can actually launch and put it on BidNet and so forth. In order to get that going smoothly, we have to do a survey so that we can show exactly where the area that we're asking them to see the proposals for. And so instead of them kind of blindly looking at stuff, we went ahead and did the survey, and that was basically located all utility lines, right of way, and things like that. So it's just from the whole area from the roundabout, 15th Street, all the way to the 22nd Street. It's kind of stops right at the intersection. So that's what this is for. We anticipated that it was going to be 5,000 to 10,000, and it was not that, it was 15,000. So all services have increased since then. So this is what this is for. If it was below that, I could have been able to approve it, but since it's over, we have no choice to bring it back there. But we had to get it done to get the RFP released.
Does this count toward our match?
No, this was outside of that. That's a good question.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Again, there is a recommended motion in your packet.
I'll move to approve the construction contract with PWSI Land Surveyors for the professional survey services regarding the Argentine North project for $15,000.
Sorry.
And moved and seconded to approve the construction contract with PWSI Land Surveyors for the professional survey services regarding the Argentine North project for $15,000. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next, I don't believe we have a Strauss Park update at this time, so we're gonna strike that. And then Rick has an administrator's report.
Can you just ask a question?
Yes.
I missed the reason why we weren't gonna go over the IGA.
It was because I passed out an earlier revision version, and so nobody's had a chance to review the most recent revisions. So, just to fill in the blank on that, I was pushing it onto this agenda because I thought there was a possibility that they were going to convene all the mayors and administrators and commissioners into a meeting with the fire authority to get this moving further, and they needed comment from us before that group meets, and I wanted it to be early enough, but that group isn't meeting until the 27th of October, so we have time.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay. So, great.
Sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah. And I believe we're gonna have a meeting too with a few of us to discuss before our next meeting, so this will be informed of what the new suggested changes or revisions are.
We'll have more, Rick and I and John will have more background on where these revisions came from, who's suggestions.
Great, as you may or may not know, I was out of town all last week, and so I got a chance to see my mother, and went on a retreat. So it was actually really good. I have been asked to go on a retreat, it's a men's conference retreat for 5 years, and I had said no every year. And finally I said, yes, and it was great. Ask me about it offline, and I'll talk about it. So positive is I had a great time. Negative is I have been overwhelmed trying to get back with just everything. So there were times I had to kind of get away just to kind of talk because certain things I had to address even when I was out away. So I did, unfortunately, I got my initial report done today. I did not update my task list, but I did give details of some of the projects that I've been working on the last couple of weeks so that you are aware of what these are. And so one is I did submit to Jerry just my evaluation that you guys have requested for me to evaluate myself. And it's hard to not give myself all fives, but I did give honest answers. And I'm not perfect. And also, I have the last few weeks I've been trying to think about what my goals are going to be. So I have submitted goals to you as well, but these are most likely going to probably be updated as I spend a little more time thinking through these. So I believe you have hard copies. Jerry has everything to email you, so that you guys will have that. So that was that. But as far as just, I can walk through some of the projects if you want me to. And then I got a couple things I wanted to highlight that I kind of broke away and will mention. We are working some ordinance changes. One, well, it's just several of them. The hotel motel length of stay is still important, even in our staffing today. Our police department is still asking to work on this as soon as possible because there's a lot of pressure that's on. And I know Jerry's working on that, but that's just, it's coming, right, Jerry?
Yeah, a draft, it's more complicated than just saying, that's the part of the mess. Cutting it down, but some mechanisms that are just really administration heavy. You've got a very small staff, and you have to watch out for adopting all the bells and whistles because somebody's got to operate with bells and whistles. And that is retooling it for a smaller staff is the trick. But I've got a pretty good draft, and I'm sure I'll have it available to you.
Jerry, are you aware that Idaho Springs is also working on this? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And another one, Jerry and I have been discussing this in fact, Lynette and I have been discussing it for months, but trying to work on another potential, but it's really, I asked him to create a memo, and I believe I put it in your packet as well. But this is something that I asked him to present, or not necessarily present, but give me a memo of what we would like to do, but under your discretionary authority of tasking us to do. So we think it's important that we look at our gateway commercial and anything that makes use and re-examining the code so that we can focus on broadening affordable housing options in this, because the way the code's written right now, it actually hinders us. We're not gonna be able to any, even mixed use, so commercial bottom, residential above, or even 2 stories, because it's limited by our height amendments, I mean, our ordinances already. But something that takes away, primary use, because that's what hinders, we'll never have any housing or residential mixed units in that with the code the way it is. So if we can adjust it a little bit, it does not adjust it for any person per se, because even this development that is wanting to come, it would not benefit them at all, because they want to do 100% residential. And we're saying we want to do at least have a commercial component. Doesn't have to be a dominant, it has to have a commercial component. So Jerry can work out the language for that, but I'd like for us to work on that. So, we've already looked at the trash management one for the short-term rental, and then another one that we would like to look at, which Jerry and I have been talking, so it's limited as well, is looking at a code where we can potentially look at, if we're gonna be doing any multifamily developments, to do a deed restricted or somehow restrict that a percentage of that development has to be affordable housing. And so Jerry's got, some options that he's seen from other cities, and I can't remember the name of the city that you looked at.
Yeah, I put together a memo, both Crescent View and not Crescent View have examples. There's, Breckenridge and Telluride, others have them, but after you read a couple, they start to repeat. And so I put together a memo that gives you the main themes, you see in these ordinances. And the dials, you can dial it up or down in terms of what's the percentage of affordable housing that has to be included. And what's the percentage of employee housing, which is a different definition usually, and that's, okay, X percent has got to be devoted to housing that's deed restricted for people who make, for example, 80% of their income in the county. You can see why that's designed, and that might necessarily limit the price of the home, but it limits the deed restricted who can buy it. They've got to demonstrate basically residence and employment in the county. You're serving a slightly different goal, when you think about it. That well be both of those goals might happen at the same time, but they can be independent too. I've got a little memo, probably the best way for us to grasp these issues. You can look at the memo, you can see what a couple of cities have done. And that'll really prepare you for the conversation we need to have. Yeah, there's,
Did you hear that? Mary said Silverthorne was also looking at this, so.
any number of examples, but they all, after a point, they start to repeat, and it's really kind of the main, there's no sort of magic tool out there. If you just copy that, you're good. You need to make the legislative policy decisions that around, okay, what's the percentage? And what are the requirements? And is it going to be deed restricted? And so how long? And after a while, it's really those questions that you need to answer for your community. The rest of you answers them for them and tell you right for them, but the sports can actually answer the question.
I have a question. Is this something that you foresee utilizing when the Bighorn Crossing decides to go to apartment complexes instead of townhomes? Is that kind of the timeline?
It wasn't specifically thinking for that development timeline. It's just I've had 3 or 4 developers contact me, and every single time they say, with the jargon, affordable housing,
Right.
but it seems to never be affordable housing.
Right.
And so we're trying to secure a percentage of something that could be.
Absolutely. I really like the employee housing piece of that, Jerry, but I didn't know if that was where the motivation was about this Bighorn Crossing and potential changes to that deal.
I look at it as any
Anybody.
new developments, we're kind of losing our opportunities
Of course.
to make something happen, and I feel like we need to get something on the books as quickly as we can. So.
You'll have that memo for your next meeting, well in advance, and there's some real homework in terms of, I could have given you 10 ordinances, but, at some point, it's less is more, so that you can, like, then think about what you want to do.
It's a flexibility.
So roads and bridges, bollards, the inserts, for, what do we call it? I call it inserts. I don't know what you would call it.
Mounting
The
member.
mounting that goes in the ground, those are all in, and then this week, the concrete stuff's supposed to go around it, so all that will be done. And then they should be ready. It's gonna be a little difficult because it gets, dirt, debris, once they get in it, it does not operate the way we want it, so we have to make sure that we, have a device to open it up with. And so, Scooter said that he's going to create a special hook that he can reach down and pull it out so that we can put the ball into it. And most likely, I guess it's really under your discretion. The ones that we ordered for the school were yellow. And we could put the sleeve that goes over top of it, because it's stainless steel right now. We could order the sleeve that goes over it, that will be yellow in color too, so it stands out like normal bollards do. But that's up to your discretion. If you want that, I can put an order. If not, then we are done with bollards.
Are those fairly inexpensive?
They are fairly.
Okay.
So, we have received a large quote from ESI to do a lot of paving projects and various road projects. I think we did a walkthrough a week before I left. They gave us a quote for like 8+ projects. We're in the process of me, Mary, and Scooter evaluating the list based on what our budget is. And that will be determined this week of which projects we're gonna move forward with the amount of budget that we have. And I give you potential projects, paving a road street from 11th to 15th. And curbing for drainage, and culverts under Rose Street to drain the water from Marion Street, fixing drainage issues on 8th Street, Skyline Drive, draining culvert. This was fixed today. We're getting multiple quotes for a large concrete pad that, this has been on the, I guess Mary and I were talking, but the whole R&B shop concept has been on the agenda for a long, long time. We are pushing to move this in stages, considering our budget won't allow us to do the whole project. So we're going to do the first phase of that as soon as possible, which is just a concrete pad. And then next year we will erect the walls and the roof. That's all that is. Well, it's really just a frame because it doesn't have walls. So it's just a frame and a roof. And then the next year we will put the walls up. So it's going to take us at least 2 more years. We've also been fixing equipment. So our street sweeper device had some issues. It wasn't operating the way that Scooter knows it should, so we had to get that fixed. So because it fits on the skid steer. The backhoe was also repaired. We're getting, let's see what else. The hotel repairs parking lot, we're going to regrade that. And we're trying to get that ready before Christmas market, so Mary's already aware of that one. But evidently, we've never done any work that we were kind of obligated to by contract to fix that. And so we're gonna do it, and it's probably gonna cost about $1,500 2 truckloads, most likely. And then we're looking at doing some regrading as well for the parking lots at the lake. So that's probably gonna be about $5,000, because it's gonna be about 10 loads of trucks. So, and that's the one that we just can't regrade it. You have to kind of pour it in the potholes and things like that, and just kind of fix it, because it's not, it's parts of it are paved, and it's just kind of a mess down there. 22nd Street bridges, I had you guys tasked me to talk to Bob about it. Bob Hamilton did look at the quotes, and he did conclude that it is engineered properly according to that quote, and the price was fair, is what he determined. So it's still, it went from 16,000 to 52,000. So that's just for one bridge with 4 approaches.
So are you bringing that back to us for approval at our next meeting?
I can.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you an update
Sure.
of his comments on that.
Yeah.
I was hoping he would say, no, this is what we can do, but he didn't do that. Let me think, Ryan's got a lot of things he's working on, feel free to read that, I think he's got a lot of projects that he's doing. RFPs, we've not received any information or any interest at this point for a new auditor. It goes until mid-October, so hopefully we'll have some interest. I did email a few people too that were recommended from the CML listserv. And so I'm hoping that, I already emailed those specific companies to the RFP that hopefully they'll bid, but we'll see. And then the other one was the Argentine North project, which we had a meeting yesterday. It was a walkthrough, a mandatory walkthrough. We only had 2 companies, organizations come. They did say that traffic was horrendous in Denver, and they think that might have pulled people away. I went back and emailed people that did show interest. They have not responded. So, I don't have any updates for the watershed protection, but I did leave this information so that you can go back and read it for my last one. I just have a couple more questions that I would like to talk with our water attorney to make sure she's okay and move forward. I would give this update though. Brian and I talked about it today. Excel knows that we were very unhappy by them draining the 4-bay because every time it rained, that sediment was coming down all the way into our watershed area, and it was causing our water facility plant to shut down every single time.
And it filled up our filter as well.
Correct. And so that's a $10,000 replacement for us. We did let Excel know, and since then they have allowed the water to fill back up in the 4-bay, not completely where it was, but it is holding water. And they have communicated that they're going to try to hold water in there until they can determine what the next steps are going to be, because they realize that it is contributing now to negative impacts on us. So they are going to try to keep water there. We were hoping while the water was down to do tests and go in there and get samples of the sediment, 4 samples. But we were not
dealing with Excel.
But we were not
There
there.
in the class of the problem.
Well, you can still get sediment samples.
Sure.
It's not prohibited.
Yeah, it was just, we could
There's
have.
an opportunity, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like Excel's gonna go, wait, these guys get their samples.
So that's that, and then wayfinding signs, I did already approve that, so we're waiting for them to come actually get the sign, and we'll take it back to the shop to remove it. But I did want to just bring to your attention, and I did write it a little message here, but while I was gone, I got an email from Kent Stewart to House of Signs asking for his sign to be, for the sign to be changed to add his capital prize mine area on it. And they immediately contacted me and said, this is different, we're not used to this. Did you authorize this? And I said, no. And I wanted you to be aware of it. And so I told them to do not move forward with that, because this was to repair the sign, not to change any of the verbiage on the sign. Because that's a whole nother change. And I am open to it, of course, under your authorization of saying we want to move this. And I would assume that we would take it to the Business Review Promotions Commission for their comments, things like that. But it was stopped. And so I don't think that there was any ill will by anything. I think it was more trying to save a step. It was going to be changed. Can we go ahead and do this? It just was a little different. It should have come to us first, talked about it, and made a decision, as opposed to while it's still in the shop, let's go ahead and make changes. So it was a little.
Rick, I spoke with that gentleman while you were out, and it's not so simple as just adding Kent's business. It would be taking down everything that's listed, resizing them and having to do all of them over again is what he explained. So a large cost involved in doing it.
So so that's that. So we're at a, I've not allowed it to move forward. And so if that's something that you're interested in, then we can discuss that, but that'll be your recommendation. Non-compliant dumpsters. So Randy and I were talking about this, and this one, after spending some time with Randy, it's not as easy as going through that huge booklet and saying you're out of line, change, that there's a little bit more that we have to research on this. So just because the DRC says it should not be a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean I can make it, because there's no ordinance violation. It's just a design review that, you know, it's like, it should be either enclosed or it should be an animal, I don't know what you call it, the wildlife proof. Yeah, wildlife resistant. And so it's what Randy said, it's either or. And so some that we have are not enclosed, but they are wildlife resistant. And so they would not be in violation per se, but it doesn't necessarily look as nice because some of the others are. But anyways, all that to say is we're gonna have to look at it a little bit more in depth. And then I'll give an update to you. And then this other one, Jerry is aware of this one. This one's a little funky because I got an actual notice, a certified letter notice from an attorney, FJ or FGMC attorneys, that there was a ski accident where a skier hit a metal pole on this Loveland ski resort area and had significant health injuries. And they are wanting compensation. And so they submitted this request to the town and mentioned many staff members in this. So Jerry, while I was gone, communicated to Sursa, you can file a claim, but it'll be denied because we don't own this. I know.
Well, because it's not, so that's how the connection is. No, the mailing address for Loveland Ski Area is in the town of Georgia. So that's how the connection happens.
Yeah, well,
They're reaching.
yeah, I mean, this, you know, the governmental immunity act says before you can sue the town for any danger condition, you have to give a notice in a certain period of time. That preserves your rights. So it's kind of a preservation of rights of it. But you're always, I guess, at the point, careful to name potentially to advise potentially any government agency in your right to probably version because of the address.
Yeah.
But significantly, they named the state commission and the city of Loveland, Colorado, which, as you know, is located on the front range up near Fort Collins. It's like, and has nothing to do with the Loveland ski area. So that's an example of being careful and then being way more careful. And frankly, just causing each of those entities to spend the 15 minutes of wasted time to alert their insurance carrier to file a denial. And I think that's, personally, I think it's kind of inappropriate to not spend a little time narrowing that list down. Yeah, yeah. So it's obviously nothing to no, it's just irritating that it takes up some of our time.
And I just brought it to you. It's nothing serious, but it's.
You didn't open that up and go, "Whoa."
Yeah, I did. First, I started by letter. Okay, but anyways, I'm meeting with Kurt Sukup tomorrow to discuss, I had submitted a letter, formal response back to, and I believe Jerry, Martin, and I had discussed it so that we would all agree on the language that would be submitted. And so we're supposed to debrief on that letter tomorrow and what his thoughts are. So I think what he would like to do is talk to me first and then have a meeting with the rest of us, you know, Martin and Jerry and his team to then discuss and then bring it to you guys. Or whatever, go to the next, this is the DRC or whatever, but that's just where we are on that. So, and then the other thing is just I submitted my goals and evaluation, so I'm not gonna read that out loud, but it'll be yours. Any questions or comments?
Okay, any questions for Jerry on the memo that's in the packet on the amendment to the gateway commercial? At this time, we'll be discussing it further, but that's just to get the wheels turning and thinking about what we might wanna start proposing.
And as you do review that, and looking at it tonight myself, the memo is mostly about the language in gateway commercial, it says gotta be primary use of property law. And so how do you deal with that, and how do you kind of dial back from that? And there's 4 bullets of things that can be done around that at the bottom of the memo. 3 of them really deal with that issue, right, primarily commercial. If you look on the second page, the first bullet on the top and second page, while related, is, okay, while you're doing residential, no matter how much of it you're allowed, should it be deed restricted for affordable housing, which you can appreciate is really kind of a separate question. It's related, no question, but you'll get a lot more on affordable housing and the tools for it when you get the memo we talked about from the other, identifying what other cities should be around affordable housing generally. So this is kind of the apple within a bunch of oranges, is that top bullet. Not bad, I mean, it articulates an issue.
There are other cities that are doing it.
Oh, sure, yeah, and the memo you get for your next factor next week will describe what, for example, Crestview, Mount Crestview is doing in a fair amount of detail. That's why I wanted to tell you it's a little bit apples and oranges in this memo. So there's 3 oranges in 1 apple, and I focus on the oranges. The first one on the bottom of the first page, and the last 2 on the second page are really all about, and this is a sort of serious issue, all about, do we consider that properties in gateway commercial should be primarily devoted to commercial uses, taking the property as a whole? Because it's that language that has forced us, Rick and I, to say no to, projects that want to do more residential than commercial on a given property, and the code right now says not. So that's really the policy question for you to think about. And once you,
We want to clear something.
I think so. And once you've thought about it a little bit, I would expect that next meeting, Rick and I would hopefully get direction from you on an ordinance on getting commercial on this very point about primarily commercial, and also get direction, because you'll have the memo on affordable housing, affordable/employee housing, and it'll be a substantive meeting, because it's real, a lot of policy discussion. But I think it's teed up such that once you've given us some feedback on these points and the ones in the memo you're about to get, then we'll be pretty well positioned to draft the ordinance and confident of that and get it on the books.
Am I correct that affordable housing piece change could apply to other zoning districts besides
Yes,
gateway commercial?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can cite us to this, and that memo is written broadly.
And I've had that in
Yeah. So anyhow, be looking at this, and you'll get something in the reading else pretty quick, and that's real homework. It's not a lot of material, but it is a lot of thinking about what really is the appropriate mix of things here, and how much you want to be telling private development. You've got a piece of property, it's owned residential, but guess what? We're going to tell you kind of how to market it and how much of it you market. You've got the power to do that.
But you might turn away some nice retailers.
It's a series of policy considerations that are serious ones. And we'll look forward to getting, I think you'll get the homework that you need to form your own opinion about what you believe is the right thing.
What was there,
And then we'll get direction.
I mean, Summit County did a really good job of tracking some very nice brand names. Is there some legislation surrounding that kind of or ordinances surrounding that kind of, I'm trying to say is something that will attract these kind of names to, a retail.
Well,
Not really.
no, I mean, we've got some tools, and I will tell you that the way cities often will attract a national retailer is to share sales tax back, is to buy that. Very different set of tools here. But the classic sales tax sharing, if you come to town, you'll enter into an STIP agreement with the enhanced sales tax agreement. And we'll divvy up the amount of additional sales tax that your project generated, coming to us, and we'll give you part of it. And Walmart does that all the time, largest corporation in the world. Gets the city to cough up, $1 million in sales tax so that they will locate there. And that's kind of that's the lost leader, the kind of big example, but that goes all the way down to smaller retailers, depending.
So
And that's how they're doing that.
It is kind of a sellout, but it does attract some nice names.
That's one way of reading it. Very different than the two sets of ordinances, because you got these numbers on, right?
I also want to say, one thing I forgot to mention, but in my goals, I do have something about that, and then I've also discussed this, but to create an incentive package in a sense, so that we can be marketable. And, but you can read it and you'll see the goals that I do have something like that.
When you provide this ordinance language to us, can you or staff also provide a map of this, so that I know we're not trying to apply this to a specific property, and it would be applicable to any potential development that would fall within it. But I'd like to be able to see, when this came up a couple of meetings ago.
Or the gateway commercial.
Right, so that we know this is the part, this could be a potential parcel, this could be a potential parcel. These are already,
Yeah, just putting like a little bit of graphic to where, the gateway actually commercial starts and stops.
Yeah, sure.
That would be.
The answer is yes.
So the other thing that I was gonna bring up, and I didn't see it, and it's sitting right in front of you, you have to bring it up. The weather station is having a little to go. They're down at the warming house. And so what the hiccup right now is, they've gone through Comcast to get a cable line, a hard line installed. At first, it was gonna be free from Comcast, and the issue is just to install it. They're so backed up right now that they were hoping to get it done. It looks like now it's probably not gonna happen until next year. This is how far back they are. And then on top of that, they came back and said that the cost now is gonna be about $10,000 to bring this hard line in. And it's just sad to hear of how long this is going. But so what they're asking right now, they come back and said, they can wait that long if you guys want them to, but they would like to go ahead and get stuff going. So one thing that they could do as a second option in order to at least move forward is to go with Starlink satellite, which is supposed to be like the best right now for a situation that they're right now. There's lots of satellites that you can go into. It's not perfect because inclement weather can affect it. If it's a strong winter storm or whatever, but that's okay.
If it's windy or that's not something that we have to worry about.
It's 50 miles per hour, But,
So they profiled Hurricane Sandy, that's a crazy dangerous.
we're used to that. So what they're asking is, would you allow them to pursue this Starlink satellite? It's a small dish that we put on top of the wall. It doesn't look like the dish from the old days. It actually almost looks like just a square plate. It's very small.
The Vermont state flower.
So it's just a very small device that's put on top.
Does DRC have to
I will take this to DRC next. I just want to make sure you
I
guys.
would hate for us to say yes and overstep on.
I know, but I wanted to bring it to you because they would like to move forward, but I said, let me do the steps first. Are you okay with them doing this? They would still like to do the hard wiring next year. The funds are not the issue. They have the funds. Services can be paying this. So it's not on our end. It's just I think it's the aesthetic that they were concerned that we would immediately reject. Are we okay with having a little flags?
We can put some lights on it.
It's not reflective on.
It's dazzling.
It's stainless steel, it's very,
Rhinestones out of
We are-
the
I don't know what the color is, except for what they've shown in the picture.
They do it twice as big, large, it doesn't, hold on to better.
I have a link that I can send you. So
It's
you
not-
it's
And maybe,
starting.
maybe that image, since Deanne can't see your,
Yeah, do you want to show the image to?
actually, I would describe it. So up on the roof, it appears to be small. It appears to be about a foot square, and it points up into the sky. It looks like it's about yay shallow.
Imagine it's about the size of this 2 pieces of paper.
So, yay,
About
that's
that
about
size.
6 inches. So.
It
yes,
doesn't matter because since the time when everybody laughed, the sound has been total crap and I got no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, when we talked last and approved the new equipment to be installed at the weather station down by the lake, Comcast is not able to do that installation quickly. They are backlogged. And so this would get the new equipment up and running on something that may not be infallible. It may be subject to severe weather and wind at times, but it would at least provide an alternative to waiting a year for Comcast. So,
What is
yes,
the cost?
what?
What is the cost?
Would not cost us anything.
It isn't costing us anything. Sirsa is covering these costs.
So Starlink is for free.
No, Sursa would be paying the cost of this alternative internet service. So it's just, I'm bringing it to you because it's a change of what you guys had authorized. And it's a different equipment piece that would be on top of the roof.
For a year.
Did that. They could go long-term if they're satisfied with it, and if it works accordingly, but they don't know. It's still it's a question, will this work?
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, let's go with the alternative option as long as DRC is in agreement that it complies with our requirements. Anybody else?
If it's a short-term, apparatus, does it still need to, so we put up and take it out?
Well, I mean, temporary things become permanent, in my experience. I mean, doesn't always, and is a year a short enough temporary time?
Right.
I don't know. I would
Probably the
rather,
best, but I
Yeah.
just wondered.
it's gonna tide us over at least. It may serve our purposes long term, but I don't really want to put the time qualifier in there.
So the appropriate motion is to approve the substitution of the equipment at the weather station, subject to DRC approval. So.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the substitution of the equipment change at the weather station, subject to DRC approval. All in favor? Yes, Deanne?
Why can't they continue as we have for several years if it's gonna involve a change like this? You know, we agreed to the initial change, but now that that's flummoxed and will take at least a year, what's the problem with continuing doing it as we have been until we get to that year? What's the plus and minus of continuing versus getting the satellite thing?
So currently, it is hardwired with, does not have an internet connection to it. And the cords have been broke twice now from the wind. So it is not in operation right now. It's not been in operation.
It just seems like adding something that we're not sure of is a little bit silly if we could just repair what's there and keep going as is.
The
Yeah,
repair of what's there requires that Comcast hook things up, and they are backlogged enough that it will be a year before that happens.
I understood that was only for the new thing to get hooked up rather than what's been there for the last 5-10 years.
now we brought this up already, so and it was approved for them to move forward with having an internet permanent connection.
Yep.
That's the same. What's happened is it's not going to be installed in a timely manner. And so they're coming with an option B in order to get their equipment up and running. And so they just can't get their equipment until they can get this internet stuff. Everything else is already installed, by the way. So they're just waiting for this internet connection. This would help them get the data that they need.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed. I think wasn't an answer to my question, and until I have that and feel confident that there's an actual progressive thing being done here, I've got to say no, because I do want the weather station there, and I do want it to be up as modern and easy to use as possible. However, if that's not going to happen for a year, I still think we need to look into running it as it has been running until that time.
Okay, thank you.
And these are volunteers we're supporting, correct?
Yeah.
That's what was my understanding. So
Yeah.
let's give them what they need as a volunteer.
So, motion passes. Anything else? For you? Okay, moving on. Next we have you, Dina, who are going to give us an update on the HDPLC.
Sure. The Historic District Private Lands Commission had a meeting on last Wednesday, the 21st in the morning. They talked an awful lot about reconstructing an awful lot of trails that got washed out with those heavy July rains that were giving us all fits. They went into specifics, which if you'd like, I can go over, or just say that they had to replace, like, say, 30-foot long pieces of a trail that had washed out. And some of the washouts were 3 and 4 cubic feet deep, going clear down to rock. The bridges on the Rutherford Trail, for example, are a major safety problem, but they think they will have them completed this week. This is Clear Creek County's Trail and Rec department. The Pet Waste Station up at Silverdale is doing real well. People have realized there's no such thing as a poop fairy and are taking much better care up there. Let's see, the Trails and Rec people helped create an outdoor classroom over at King Murphy, which doesn't affect us that much, but it's something going on in the county. Let's see. The Santiago Mill site, they're planning on having signage at the blacksmith shop and the main building for the next field season, and put in surveillance cameras to keep vandals and stuff under control. All of that's paid for by the Santiago Stewards Fund, but basically it'll be a tourist attraction. You can hike in and stuff. There was quite a bit of discussion about a couple races that were planned that didn't have proper permitting and the like. and are detracting from the areas that's in some spots where they're run through. Because without the permits, they can kind of go through maybe alpine terrain and the like and screw stuff up. But anyway,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Deanne. Did they mention names? And were those just sort of impromptu races that kind of popped up?
one was called the Great Divide 100, and it hasn't happened yet. It's for next May, but it hasn't approached any of the appropriate entities to get any kind of permitting. And some of the part of that one runs on our ground, the town's ground, and on Forest Service ground, and then over into other areas up Red Elephant into Lawson and back over here by the lake. And then there was one called the Red Elephant Run. And that one was kind of snuck in with some sort of essentially Facebook notification rather than any kind of big advertising campaign. A lot of people are not happy with it because, again, the point of the permitting is to make sure that there's less damage done to the terrain. However, let's see what else. They talked about Assistant Chief Fire Chief Jones was there and gave a really nice presentation, pretty similar to what he gave today, and was talking about the Christmas tree promotion. And that seems like a really good idea. I think maybe we should give it over to business promotions. It needs to be done really soon so that, because essentially there's just 2 months from today to when people want to put Christmas trees up. But it seems like they should be able to do a little bit of advertising and set up some sort of, I don't know, make it into a little festival or something, and maybe even attach it to Christmas market, but that's just my opinion. But at any rate, I think maybe business promotions should take it over, but maybe Parks and Rec, I don't know. Anyway, and then the big thing was the problem with public service pulling the penstock and changing the hydrology of the creek. There are problems with water now hitting the bridge that it used to only hit for a few days in the high runoff times, and that when it was planned, that was at the 100-year highs kind of mark, and now it's hitting there every day. And so it's pretty important, not only that HDPLC is in on the, what would you call it, the discussion table for this, but that the town is too, because we got to have a seat to get our opinions in on the mitigation, because they're doing things that are causing damage, just like you were talking about clogging up the water plant and the filters and things like that. It's things are going to flood now that didn't, because there's no way to slow the water down and stuff like that. Anyway, we need to figure out how we can get in on Excel's discussions and mitigation and all of that sort of thing. And let's see, what else? There was something else that was pretty important. Hold on. The Forest Service Abandoned Mines Division has been doing work up that direction, up the Argentine side, at Waldorf and at the Santiago Mill, to keep some of the bad runoff from going into our water. They didn't get real specific on what exactly, but that seems germane to us, that at least they're trying to keep our water source clean and unpolluted. And that was pretty much the whole meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for Deanne? Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else have anything? I just wanted to make a mention of our Mayor Parker's big fundraising event is this weekend, Saturday, Parker Palooza. He's raising money. It's celebrating his birthday also, but he's raising money for camper scholarships. And it's taking place at Rocky Mountain Village. And it's from 12 to 4 on Saturday this coming weekend, so just letting you know.
I've been to other Paloozas and this one is really fantastic.
Yep. Last year, I think he was able to raise somewhere in the neighborhood of 24,000 or something in camper scholarships, so they're trying to double it. So it's a wonderful event. Okay. I think we can make it heard. Yes. Anything else?
Can you donate online if you can't make the police?
I think I saw a donate button out there on Facebook, so.
That's in football. I'll get into it somehow, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
That's cool.
I will adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you all so much.
What is the witch's circle?